Hi everyone, my name is Ava and I'm an American living in the Netherlands.
And lately, I've been reflecting about my life here in the Netherlands, and I have a lot of thoughts to share. And today's musings feature social situations that I think are awkward for Americans and that I personally also find awkward as an American. I hope that's not just me personally, but we'll see. I'm definitely interested in reading the comments on this one. So let us dive right into the first awkward social situation. Situation that shouldn't be awkward, but I still feel a little bit uncomfortable, like I'm on the sidelines watching everybody in these situations, which is true. And I guess I'm in these situations often, but not often enough that I've talked about them before in one of my videos. So that's interesting. But these are situations in which you are required to sing songs. Like at a birthday, you sing a birthday song. Now, I do know the Dutch birthday song by now, but let me tell you, no one prepared me for the qualities of the Dutch birthday song. The American birthday song, tame. You sit and you clap very modestly. Everyone's pretty calm. It's rhythmic, but there's honestly nothing special about it. You know, it's just a very calm, standard birthday song. The Dutch one is a party. The Dutch birthday song, no joke, requires you to be in amazing physical shape. You need to be shouting the birthday song, not just melodically singing it, but shouting the Dutch birthday song. Your claps need to be enthusiastic. You need to end the song with a hip hip hurrah, and I'm not gonna do the Dutch version of this because it still makes me feel a little bit like I'm faking it, like I was not born into this level of enthusiasm over someone's birthday. But why shouldn't we be? Obviously. Okay, so that was the birthday song at birthdays, but there are also other songs. And sometimes for various occasions, people will have all kinds of songs that they sing. Now, of course, in America, we have our share of songs, and I'm American, so this to me is very normal. But let me tell you, in the US, we don't really pull out a repertoire of songs to sing for people on their birthdays or for other occasions. No, though. In the Netherlands, there is such a list of songs that people all just know. Like, I've never heard my wife mention any of these songs. She's Dutch. She suddenly is a master at remembering lyrics. She cannot remember one lyric from any pop song ever. But these songs, of course, she's grown up with them. So she remembers them. And suddenly everyone in the room is bursting into song and some kind of dance, not always, but sometimes. And I don't know these songs. I think I should take a moment to actually study them, but no one ever teaches you these things in class. So for me, then I'm immediately like, okay, people can tell I'm not from here and that I'm an outsider. Because now that I speak Dutch, it's not immediately obvious to people who don't know me that I don't belong here. Ooh, that sounds really harsh. That I was not born in the Netherlands, that I didn't grow up in the Netherlands. So of course I survived these situations just fine, right? You just smile, you clap, you look like you're enjoying yourself because you most often are. And it's all fine, but I noticed that I find myself feeling ever so slightly uncomfortable. And as I was talking about this, I was wondering if Dutch people feel awkward singing the English birthday song. Maybe not everybody, but maybe some. I don't know. I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. Okay, now this next one, I feel like maybe Dutch people just have more practice with it, but I definitely don't. And I find myself feeling ever so slightly awkward in these situations, which is when my package has been delivered to a neighbor's. Oh yes, I definitely know that some Dutch people don't love this, but as an American, listen, in the US, they just dump your package outside your door. Yes, it gets stolen, and we would much rather take that risk than actually have to go talk to someone or as a neighbor pick up someone else's package and have it in your house. We would like to avoid this situation entirely. So now imagine that I'm here in the Netherlands and I have to do this on a regular basis because especially now that I have a child, we do order things online more than I would like, I'm ashamed to admit, and we are never home. It seems. Or maybe even if we are home, sometimes I feel like the delivery person decides to not ring our doorbell anyway and goes delivers the package to a neighbor.
Just realized that it is entirely possible that my delivery person is avoiding me. Can't rule this theory out. Oh well.
So anyway, inevitably a package of ours ends up at a neighbor's and I have the great job in our family to go pick it up. And this says nothing about my neighbors. It's just the act of going to pick up the package that I find awkward. Number one, they know exactly what you're ordering and from where. That's embarrassing. Like, you have to screen what you're ordering or make sure that you're home to ensure that they don't get some package that might be perceived as odd or weird at their house. So that's number one. Number two is the timing. Because between 9 to 5, you're working or you're somewhere else, and that's the reason you didn't pick up your package at home in the first place, and therefore it ended up at the neighbors. So you're kind of then in the situation where you need to go to your neighbors outside of these business hours, because also maybe they're not home, right? And you're not home. So coordinating that is difficult. And then if you go after like 5 p.m., it's maybe they're having dinner. I don't know. It's all kind of awkward. And then those conversations, you're like, this is my neighbor, so do I want to be polite and talk to them? You know, sometimes you're interested in having a short chat, and other times you're not. But how do you know which situation is which? Will you be perceived as being rude if you end the conversation too early? Or will you be perceived as a lingerer if you stay and have a chat? I want to be polite, but I also don't want to be the American who talks too much. How do I solve this dilemma? For now, in my case, I have just accepted that I am, in fact, an American who talks too much. So I've let that go, and I usually exchange a few polite words and ask them how it's going and grab the package unless it's really obvious that they're in a rush. But hey, I still find these situations awkward. Okay, now this next situation I find has just increased in frequency since I've moved here to the Netherlands. And that is when I go grocery shopping. Thing that I love about the Netherlands is that in very many grocery stores, you will have a lot of self-checkout counters that you can just go to, and you're very quick and very fast when you do your groceries. I love that. I love not having to interact with people when I do my grocery shopping. Listen, human interaction is great for the soul, but when I'm grocery shopping, I don't know if that other human per se would want to interact with me. Like, I'm not in a great state to interact with people then. Some of you who have run into me on the street can vouch for this, because oftentimes I want to have a nice chat, but I think I tend to be someone who spends a lot of time in their head. So when you catch me off guard, you will notice that I'm a bit of a deer in headlights. So that's the kind of person I am when I'm grocery shopping. I am fixated on the grocery list, trying to make sure I don't forget anything, and I want to be in and out as quickly as possible. The thing that prevents you from being as quick as you would like to be, and I kid you not, I have missed trains because I'm trying to do grocery shopping before heading to the station because of this. And that is the steekproef. That is when there is a random check to make sure that you have paid for the items that you're walking away with. Great, you know, I understand that this needs to be done periodically to make sure that you are not stealing stuff. Absolutely. However, I feel like the number of times now that they check to make sure that you've actually paid has increased. And maybe this has to do with the number of shoplifting incidents. I have seen that this is a very real problem for supermarkets, so I get that. However, personally, when I'm in this situation, I always find it ever so slightly awkward. Listen, as an American, us Americans, we are so used to being searched and having our bags checked. I mean, when I went to school even, we had metal detectors, and often people would check our bags to make sure we didn't bring inappropriate items into the school building. So I am no stranger to this, except the difference is that when you are at an airport, for instance, or at school, such a weird thing to say, but fact, school, or you know, walking at a subway station in New York City and then someone decides to like pat you down and check. I have thankfully never been in that situation, but as an American, people sift through your belongings quite often. But the difference is that here in the supermarket, I feel like I'm buying items and I'm putting it into this bag that I have, and it's not as controlled as, you know, when you go to the airport, you pack a certain number of stuff that you come with and you leave. At the supermarket, you put a bunch of random items into your bag. You come with some items as well. So I feel like there are very many factors. And I find it awkward that there is a teenager, which makes it way worse because teenagers are like a nightmare, and then they are there judging you. I feel this is how I see this situation, right? That there's this teenager judging me for the stuff I buy and the stuff that I own. Everyone who's ever done this, who has been a teenager or otherwise, has been extremely professional and really nice and often very helpful. So this is not on them, this is entirely on me, but I find that moment where I have to step back and let them look through my items. Also, it takes forever, whereas a normal bag search is pretty quick. But this is item by item, and sometimes you have a lot of items they need to go through. And I, like an idiot, like when will I ever learn? I put my items in the bag that I brought with me or a separate tote bag. But if it's like a few small items, I've then probably put it in the bag that I came with, which is often this bratty tote bag. But it also has my personal items in it. So then you have this person going through the personal items, old receipts. I mean, I really need to clear this bag out that I bring with me. And then of course the actual items. So all of it feels a bit awkward, and I'm standing there always slightly, ever so slightly tense that I might have forgotten to pay for an item, which thankfully has only happened once, and that was a genuine mistake, so I just paid for it after. But I'm always standing there a bit tense that this person's going to think, oh my god, I like tried to shoplift, I don't know, toothpaste. Toothpaste is expensive though, so I mean everything's expensive. Anyway, besides the point, I do not do that, but then I'm always standing there feeling awkward about being judged, which is very random, like that shouldn't happen. And on the other hand, being afraid that I have forgotten to pay for an item. Okay, now this next social situation is basically any social situation with a Dutch person. When you go out to do something fun or you're just meeting up with them, it's not the meeting up and the whole event itself, it's the end. When you are done, let's say, meeting up with the Dutch person, or you've gone out to dinner and you're done with the dinner, if the person you're meeting up with is Dutch, remember to budget time to exit, to leave, because Dutch people take forever to say goodbye. I am not joking. It takes forever. Like anytime I'm in a social situation with a Dutch person, I need to make sure that I budget time to say goodbye before I actually need to go. See, the thing is, Dutch people really want things to be gezellig. So they're not the ones to stop talking to you abruptly. That's just not something they do. They want to ease their way into the goodbye. First of all, there are like 7 different ways of saying goodbye in Dutch. So, you know, they'll probably go through 3 or 4 of them at any given point in time. So there's that. But also before then, it's always, this was so nice. It's been so nice to see you. Sometimes you will even, in that date, pick a day to see each other the next time, which is great, very efficient, very convenient. But all of this takes a really long time. And maybe you squeeze in 1 or 2 other anecdotes in the meantime. So unless you really need to leave to be somewhere, there is just no escaping a Dutch person quickly in a social situation. Not that I particularly want to, it's just that in America, we do it differently. In the US, we're very comfortable with being like, okay, this has been fun, goodbye now, let's do this again soon, see you later, and we leave. It's really that simple. So imagine my surprise after the first few times in these social situations, and then we had to say goodbye, and I was completely taken aback by how long everything took. But that said, I have still not quite mastered the situation without feeling ever so slightly awkward on the inside. Because I'm American. I have really been trained that you end this social gathering before you become a lingerer. You know, you don't want to stay too long. You don't want to like impose. You don't want to outstay your welcome. These are all phrases we use in America for a reason. It's because we just want to make sure that we've all had a good time. Everyone's happy that the conversation lasted for as long as it did. And when someone says goodbye, we get the message. We are like, okay, time for you to go. You are probably busy. You have something else to do. But in the Netherlands, like I said, that's just not how it works. And to be honest, this seems like the exact opposite of what I would expect. I would expect Dutch people to also be efficient like Americans and say goodbye and then move on, because they probably have like 7 other things planned after. But no, Dutch people still somehow choose to linger, and I find that interesting and surprising. I guess they don't want to be rude, but interestingly enough, in America, the opposite would be considered rude. Okay, this next one is a huge difference between Americans and Dutch people. And that is that Americans love giving compliments. And guess what? I'm American, so I love giving compliments as well. This is my way of showing that I care about you in both a social and work setting. I will give people compliments. It comes naturally to me. It's just, again, a way of saying that I care about you, I see you, and these are genuine compliments. Just put that out there. People think that Americans are fake because they say, how are you, and walk away and give you fake compliments. That's just not the case. You pick a genuine thing that you genuinely like about someone and you share that. You just say it. It's nice. It can be as simple as, hey, I like your shirt, or, oh, that thing you said was really interesting. Like, I really liked it. It's that simple. But the thing is, I do this here in the Netherlands, and then I am the cause of an awkward social situation because Dutch people, as it turns out, are really bad at receiving compliments. You could say, that's a nice shirt, and they will jump into all the things and reasons why that shirt is not nice enough to begin with. So they will say, oh, this is old, or I got this on sale, or like, you know what, this shirt is actually really ugly and I don't like it much anyway, so I should probably get rid of it. Like, they will do anything they can to avert that compliment that you gave them, which causes an awkward situation because I am there like, maybe I shouldn't have given you that compliment anyway, or like, am I weird for liking your shirt now? Because you just said that you hate it, but you have it on and I think it looks good. So what's going on here? It's so very awkward. So I kind of need to stop doing that, but then I feel like I'm not showing people that I'm attentive or that I'm listening to the things they're doing, that I'm seeing them for who they are. Like, to me, this is a very big way in which I communicate with people that I like. I'm not going to give you a compliment if I don't like you. And I think that makes people feel awkward. Or sometimes, and here's the thing, sometimes I wonder if people maybe think I like them too much if I give them a compliment. But I don't think that's the case. I just think Dutch people are awkward about compliments in general. And the situations are actually pretty funny that I create. This is a funny thing to say, but I have just decided to start enjoying the awkwardness. Like, I have decided that I'm going to give the compliment, and yes, I am feeling awkward as well. But I also enjoy watching other people stumble and be like, oh no, what do I do with this genuine, hopefully they know it's genuine, this genuinely nice compliment that Ava just gave me. And I think I'm just going to let the situation play out as it is and enjoy it. Hopefully I don't burn any bridges by doing that. Okay, now going back to events or social gatherings, I just cannot keep up with the level of drinks that Dutch people can consume, alcoholic or otherwise. Like, I'm talking even copious amounts of tea. And the reason this feels ever so slightly awkward is because Dutch people, again, are all about being gezellig. So that means when you go to a restaurant, you're all ordering kind of the same amount of things. In the US, that's just not what people do. In the US, it's really to each their own. Each person has their own preferences. Like, one person wants a drink, the other person wants a side, one person wants appetizers that they maybe choose to share. I don't know, but everyone wants a different thing, and that is really very normal. Here in the Netherlands, especially when it comes to drinks, it's considered very polite and really nice if everybody orders the same number of rounds. Again, this doesn't need to be alcohol. This could also be tea or coffee. So it's just nice if someone has something to drink. Also at a restaurant, you are required to order a drink with your food. But that's not awkward. It was just a little faux pas that I made in one of my first visits here in the Netherlands, where I didn't order a drink at a cafe with my cake. And then the people stared at me, like the wait staff stared at me like, what did you just do? Like, how rude. And my wife, then girlfriend, was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to continue seeing this person. Just kidding. We're now 9 years ahead and happily married. So I guess that wasn't a deal breaker for her. But going back to my original point, so I, in these situations, just cannot have 5 or 6 drinks. I just cannot do that physically. You would think for all the refills that we get in America that I had the ability to do that, but I do not. I just physically do not know where I would store that amount of fluid in my body. Okay, there's already enough coffee in here. By the time I'm out for dinner, there's just no room for anything else besides a glass of water and maybe 1 or 2 drinks. But when it comes to tea or coffee, the thing is, everyone then orders like a round after the other. And at some point, I just learned to have my drink very slowly so that I can skip a round or 2. But I always find that slightly awkward where I am the only one at the table being like, I'm good for now, thank you. And again, that feels slightly awkward. It's not a big deal. You know, people have gotten used to my habits. They're my friends. But yeah, I notice it from time to time, especially when I'm out with people I don't know as well yet. And finally, this last thing is very current. It's really quite the kicker. So I find that it is very awkward being American, just being American in these times. So because of the geopolitical situation, being American makes for awkward social situations. Like, I have been in so many situations recently where people may not know that I'm American or forget in the conversation, and then they start talking about America with me there. And that I find is ever so slightly awkward. Okay, it's really awkward because the things that they say, and people make assumptions, or maybe they're assumptions based on facts. I don't know. There's just a lot said about my country, and that's a bit weird. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, I don't mind. I'm sharing my opinions about the Netherlands as well, but it is a different kind of awkward when you are there and people are talking about you, it almost feels like, but you're not quite part of the conversation, because I don't know if I want to insert myself in conversations about this topic, because you could go on forever. I also find it difficult. Like, it's okay to talk about it in depth, but I find that people these days kind of just randomly bring it up. They say a few quick and dirty things, and it's not nasty per se. People are shocked, and of course with good reason, but it's just funny to be sitting there hearing these thoughts thrown out, and then people want to move on to another topic, and I'm like, oh, that was a whirlwind. That was interesting. I don't know what just happened and what I just experienced, but I have thoughts and feelings too, and I don't always get to share them, again, in situations where, I don't know the people. You don't want to cause a scene almost by being like, excuse me, I'm American and I have thoughts on this, and my thoughts count more because I'm American. Like, that is such a stereotypical American thing to say if I were to say that, which I do not. So I just politely, with a slightly awkward feeling, listen to the conversation and move on with my life. And of course, it's a little bit more elevated and intense when it comes to the geopolitical situations right now. But I find that people, even before all of this, like, they talk about Americans. Not all the time, but every once in a while when people make comments about Americans and you're there because people have thoughts about Americans and things to say, like how we're loud and our food, etc. So whenever that happens and I'm there, it's always a bit awkward because surprisingly, it's not always positive. I wonder why that is. Anyway, so those were some social situations, definitely not all, in which I still find myself slightly uncomfortable. I'm curious about what you think, and as usual, I'll love reading your comments down below. And until next time, doei!